Hey, everybody, this is Brett Ingram, and this is the optYOUmize podcast, the show that helps entrepreneurs build their dream business and dream life. Today, we're talking with Daniel Goddard, former model, fitness expert, and actor turned life coach and digital marketer. He's the founder and CEO of the AI networking app Dysko and UnderTheIn.com. I'm super excited because he's got such a range of experiences. I think we can all learn a lot from his journey. So, with that, welcome, Daniel. Thanks a lot for
Matt,
joining us.
Brett, thank you very much, and hello everybody. Thank you for having me. I truly appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm super excited. I got a ton of stuff I want to talk to you about. So, um, but I do want to start off actually with your personal story. Can you share with
Sure.
us your background and how, from the beginning, you actually got started with modeling and acting in the beginning?
Yeah, I was born in Australia. I was expected. I was the first sort of generation to go to college, and I was expected to go to college. I went to business school in Australia, and I was on track to become a merchant banker or stockbroker, some form of Securities Exchange Commission, machine. During that process, I kind of realized that it wasn't going to make me happy, and I was living for my parents. Um, I dropped out of college with about 6 months to go, to the incredible heartbreak of my father. My mother understood. She's your mom. Mums understand always.
They do.
Fathers always want, and I'm a father now of two teenage boys. Fathers always want for their kids what they never had for themselves. And when you spend your life sacrificing, which I realize my father has done his entire life for his family, I suppose it's more devastating to them than the mother. But the mother understands the child must always be happy because a life without happiness is, subject to just misery. So I dropped out of college and I started going to acting school because my mum said, if you're going to drop out and take this acting thing seriously, at least you're going to take it seriously. You'll go to acting school. I started doing that. I booked a job pretty quickly in Australia on a soap opera there called Home and Away, which is sort of like it's big in England as well. Big in Australia. It's been around for over 40 years now, roughly. Um, and
I
then,
hate to interrupt, but I have to just say this is so funny you say that because my wife spent a semester abroad in London,
oh my
and one of
God,
the
yeah.
only things they could get on TV was Home and Away, the
There you go.
Australian soap
Yeah,
opera. That
yeah,
is amazing.
yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go
No, no,
ahead.
no. That's cool. And then after that ended, I couldn't get any more work in Australia because Australia was such a small acting market, and there was no work. So I decided I would leave. I ended up in Los Angeles, where it took me a couple of years to land my first job here. That was on a show because no one wanted Australian accents back then. You had to be American. You had to either be English, Irish, Scottish, Welsh, or American or Canadian. No one, Australians weren't really at that point, getting employed for their accents. So I ended up booking the show called Beastmaster or Beastmaster, if you're American. And I had a pet tiger, a pet eagle, and pet ferrets, and I ran around a loincloth. And we did that. We did 66 episodes of that single camera, which was a huge learning curve. Um, Following that and prior to that, I was working modeling because the work was there. I ended up with the job, so I did Calvin Klein and did a lot of underwear. So I was very fitness oriented at that time. I think for me, what it was is that I didn't have much control in other aspects of my life, and fitness is one of those things that you have control over. You know, what you put in your mouth is up to you. What you do with your body is up to you. Whether you run, whether you lift weights, whether you do push-ups, you have control. You can be the poorest man in the world or the richest man in the world. There is no limit to what you can achieve from a fitness perspective, assuming you're healthy, of course, because it just comes down to your mindset and your mental capacity to say, I am doing this for me. I'm not doing it for you. I'm not doing it for them. I'm doing it for me. And once you have that, you have something you can hold on to. I became extremely obsessed. I basically spent about 10 years on calipers. I was about 2.5% body fat. And that became like a calling card to me, as something I had further control over. So I became a complete control addict over my own life. I ended up on It's Young and the Restless, a soap opera. I started there in 2006 and I finished there in 2020. So I was there like 14 years, did over 1,100 episodes of soap opera. Um, and when that came to an end, I was lost from the perspective of I felt unfulfilled because I'd always done the acting thing thinking it was what I originally wanted to do because it's what I kind of broke away from the mold of, corporate lifestyle. Ironically, I ended up working for CBS and Sony, and you can't get more corporate than that. So I fell into the very thing that I was escaping. And it gave me a wonderful experience. I met many wonderful people, gave me the opportunity to have a great life. What ended up happening, though, after that was this void of uncertainty. You don't know what comes next. You can suppose what you think should come next or what you want to come next, but you're starting over from scratch. COVID was here in 2020, acting shut down, there wasn't much work out there, and then there was other social movements which made it more difficult to get work, and paradigms were shifting. So I started Dysko and underthein.com at the same time. Basically, when I was doing Beastmaster, which started in 1999, there was no social media. There was no way that fans, like the first fan interaction I had was fan mail. You get a letter in the mail, and someone's written a letter and you write the letter back. However, I learned quickly, probably around 2000, beginning of 2000, end of 99, that chat rooms and websites were the new thing. So we built a website for me, and then we added a chat room to it, which was all based around Beastmaster and the acting. So I started to understand the power of having a connection with your base, because there is nothing more powerful than having a loyal base that is on the journey with you. And as the years progressed, we moved into social media. We moved sort of out of that web-based feel into a very social side. And you can keep that connection with your audience and your fans, plural, going. So I realized that all I've been doing my entire life technically was marketing. All I realized I was doing was branding. So my wife, who is always right, I'm the luckiest man in the world. I'm married to a lady who's always right. I don't say it to be facetious. She's always right. Her instinct is phenomenal. Yeah. She's very different to me. I was born very structured. She was born a hippie. Hippie parents, lived in the hippie lifestyle, and therefore she's very intuitive. So I launched Under the Inn, started getting some clients for social media management, and then we basically from there moved out into branding, website, email campaigns, all aspects of digital branding. Doing well with the company. I love the company. I love everything about it, because what I come across a lot are people who say, hey, I've got an idea for something. I've always wanted to do this. I'm like, well, what is it? Well, I want to invent this product, or I want to launch this brand. And they'll tell you how they want to do it. And they're always coming at it from a perspective of what they think how they should do it. And the problem is, and you can do the same thing with ChatGPT now, say, I want to launch an e-commerce brand. What is the best way for me to do this? How do I do it, whatever? But they'll still just punch out a bunch of information to you that is based upon what technically or theoretically is the way to do it. But that's never the way it works. You want to head in this direction. It's not the quickest way to get there. Maybe the quickest way by crow or whatever, the way a crow flies, but along the way, there's other ways you need to get there. So I started getting to this place where I had started building these brands, launching brands. Someone wanted to launch a dog sort of supplement company. So we launched a dog supplement company for them. We've got nonprofit apparel clothing. So we have one called madeafraid.org. And this was a great idea. This person came to us and said, we'd love to launch a nonprofit sort of company. We're thinking clothing. We don't know what the angle is. So it, like a light bulb moment, it just comes to you. And I said, do you realize that most of the clothes made that you wear are made in sweatshops? Everything we use practically is made under some form of forced labor, whether it be your iPhone or whether it be, the glass you drink from, whatever it is. And they're made by predominantly underage or very low paid people around the world. It doesn't matter. It's not just China. They're everywhere. I said, so everything's technically made afraid. There's the name. We got the name. And then we decided that the clothes, if you go to madeafraid.org, the clothes basically have images of children working in sweatshops, children in mines, children mining lithium, or women weaving rugs in Turkey, but they're all basically slave labor. And so all the sales that we make from Made Afraid go to sponsor children and women in these economies in order to get them out of that life and provide them a greater opportunity of success. So everything, all of this comes around in a very simple way, which is you can have as many ideas as you want. You can have as many visions for what you think you should do as you want. But life will always take you generally in the direction that you need to be. You'll end up where your experiences have added up to give you that opportunity to present that learning curve to people. But more than that, you've got to have a vision that encapsulates a message or some form of mission statement. So I say to everybody who's like, how do I do this or how do I do that? I say the first thing is, why are you doing it? What's the reason for it? You know, is it to make money? Well, that's not going to do you that well, because that's just throwing stuff at the wall to see if it sticks. You've got to have a reason for it. Then fast forward to Dysko. Dysko is basically came about because a lot of the people I met while I was doing soap opera, a lot of fans, I did a lot of personal appearances, a lot of conventions, a lot of fan events. And the amount of people that would get in a line, and then they get to the front of the line, there's like 4 girls, 4 ladies, bunch of, even guys sometimes, you know, but soap is predominantly a lady, female-based viewership. They'd say, if it wasn't for you and Young and the Restless, I wouldn't have met these 3 girls right here. We're now best friends. We call every day. We're on the phone. We talk about the show. We talk about life. We take trips together. We leave the husbands at home, the kids at home. This is our time. And I started to realize is that Young and the Restless was bringing, and my character on Young and the Restless was bringing all of these people together in a way they never would have met. And I'm like, how do we take that mindset of finding people that are into the same things you're into, no matter where they are in the world, and bringing them together? So Dysko came about from that. And basically Dysko is an AI networking company that allows people to define themselves by using tags. So you create your profile, you can add up to 100 tags of social and work that define what you're into. You can have your name, your hobbies, your movies, all the things that make you you,
Yep.
your job, your passions, your dreams. And then wherever you walk or go, if you come in proximity of someone else, and you can set the radius between 200 yards up to 10 miles, you enter someone's radius that has commonality, you get notified. So you and I might cross paths. It'll say, hey, Daniel, Brett's here, and you guys have 15 tags in common. I'll open it up, I'll look at it, and I'll see all the tags, and then I'll choose the tags I want, and then I'll start an AI conversation with you. So basically, it chooses all those topics, and it begins a conversation. And what's interesting about it is you realize that technology is meant to make life easier. Just like my grandmother was one of the first generations to have a washing machine. Before that, it was all boiling water in the fire, pouring it in, stirring with a stick.
Right.
And technology gave her more time to do other things. So that's what technology is to me. And that's where I see my journey is coming from fan mail in the beginning to now AI. There's been a large shift in such a small amount of time. I mean, it's been like 30 years or so, but it's such a large shift that now, how do we take that technology and allow people to make their lives better? And it's not just, you know, ChatGPT and writing something or, you know, allowing me to get directions to someplace better. We looked at Dysko saying, is there anything out there that does this? And the answer is no. There's social media content apps, there's a TikTok, there's Instagram. But what we notice about all that stuff is when somebody posts something, the first thing they do is go to their comments and check it. Is there a comment? Is there a comment? Is there a comment? How many likes? How many likes? So how do we take that, trying to connect with people and make it work in a real world environment where people, no matter where you are in the world, can match with people just like them, and then irrespective of your differences, find that commonality? And that's what Dysko is doing. So I'm extremely happy and proud to be part of the company. We have about 12 colleges that are using it in order to help kids integrate into the colleges, because kids are growing up in small towns. and they want to go to a different college and they don't know anyone when they get there. So
Right.
Dysko will allow you to place your Dysko profile at any college campus, leave it there, and then as people drop in and match and meet, you're making friends at your college before you get there. Or convention spaces where you go to a convention, you can post your profile there. People at the convention can meet with you, match with you, create deal flow faster. So all of my life has led me to this moment where I understand, I think more now than ever, that humans are a community of different people, that the commonality amongst all of that, irrespective of what your race, your creed, your religion is, we just want to find companionship and friendship and common ground and understanding. So I think if I could encapsulate all of this long spiel that I've just gone on with now into what it is that I think I'm most happy about, is probably this point in my life now, because everything before this, I've been a seeker and a searcher. And now I feel like I've become more of a shepherd. So that's why.
It's amazing. First of all, thanks for sharing. I mean, what an amazing sort of arc. But the other thing that was occurring to me as you're talking, because I've thought about this in the context of my own life as well,
Mm,
is how amazing it is that sometimes things that we experience or moments in our lives where we can't quite figure out in the moment how this fits in everything
right.
and whether or not it's congruent at all, you then look back years later
And
and
you
realize,
realize,
hey, wait
yeah,
a minute, that actually served this purpose because
yeah,
it helped me make this distinction.
right,
And now I look at this in a different way. It changed my perspective on this.
right,
It's
right,
the culmination of all the different things
right,
and the collaboration of all those things that allow us to sort of reach that new level and find that
right.
new passion where we can do it. And it's amazing because you would think if you looked at your career, you looked at the things you've done, it seems in some ways to not
Random,
fit together at all. And
right,
yet there's a perfect narrative that
yeah,
weaves right through it and it makes
yeah,
total sense for where you are now. So,
yeah,
one of the questions I'm curious about is knowing the industries you came from that
mm,
are super competitive, that are super cutthroat, you have to deal with rejection all the time and all that
mm.
kind of stuff. Do you feel like that prepared you better, or there were lessons you learned from that that you've taken into sort of your digital marketing and entrepreneurship, sort of life afterward?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the expression "steel sharpens steel" or "iron sharpens iron" is one of the most accurate expressions you'll ever come across, because um, you know what's interesting. I'll give you the soft way of explaining it all is, if you look at a lobster is protected by its hard shell, but the shell doesn't grow. So the only way a lobster knows that it has to get rid of that shell is by experiencing pain and discomfort. So it's painful. The soft flesh of the lobster is being squeezed inside the shell. So it goes under a rock where it's safe from predatory fish. It ejects itself from the shell, makes a new shell, and it starts living its life and growing again. But without that pain and without that discomfort, there is no growth. So the lobster can't become a bigger lobster and a better lobster unless it suffers and experiences pain and discomfort. And that's no truer thing for fitness. I mean, muscles don't get bigger and stronger and leaner, and you don't lose body fat unless you force the body to experience pain and force it to adapt. So everything that we want in life comes at a cost. Everything has an opportunity cost. But the question is, how do we as humans who are programmed to seek pleasure and want pleasure? I mean, especially with phones nowadays and the way there's constantly dopamine, like constantly scroll, dopamine. If you're living in that environment, how do you find the wherewithal to weather the storm of adversity? And the answer is, you can't unless you experience adversity and tragedy and loss and pain and suffering and rejection. And that is what makes great people even greater. Any athlete that you look at and go, how do they do it? Pain, suffering, rejection. Any actor that you look at and go, I can't believe they had that career. Pain, suffering, rejection. And I think in particular, you look at acting, the amount of rejection I got as an actor in the 2 years I was auditioning before I got Beastmaster, rejected on everything. Rejected, rejected. And you get to the point where you're like, I can't deal with this rejection anymore. But then you say to yourself, The day you learn, actually, I said this, the day you learn that everything is not personal, that if someone says to you, hey, you're an asshole, that's because even if you said something offensive to them, you could say the same thing to someone else and they'll just laugh. Everyone is coming from their experience, their journey, their own personal set of paradigms that they've constructed to define who they are. The day you can say that is not personal, that person did not do that specifically to hurt me, they did it because they thought it served their best interests, is the day you let all that pain and suffering go away. And then it comes down to, okay, didn't get that job. Why didn't I get that job? What can I do to be better? Okay. And one thing I did start to do, and I've done this in the past, and I kind of learned this maybe around 2004, 2005. If I didn't get something, I would say to my agent or the manager, I'd say, I didn't get it. I said, could you ask the casting director what I could have done in that room that would have been better? Never to say, why didn't I get it? Because they're never going to tell you that. What could I have done better? And they'll tell you. It's like anything. How could I be better? You're a coach of a team. How you could have done this better. If you can accumulate a set of what could I have done to be better, and then you like information, and then you take that set and you start documenting it and you start religiously practicing to be better. Doesn't matter what you do in life, you ultimately get where you want to go. So you have to be critical. You have to be you have to be self-deprecating, and you have to be in a mindset where you finally get to that place where you say, it's not me. It's not my fault. That's not my fault. Because look, if you didn't study for an exam and you failed it, it's your fault. But if you studied your butt off and for some reason you were stuck in traffic and you got there late, it's not your fault. You just have to accept that, as you say, the universe is bigger than us. And all these little strands and all these little fibers that weave together to form the quilt of our existence are coming in different directions, but when they mesh and are finally woven together, you see this manifested material possession that is the quilt of your life. So without that, there's nothing. Yeah.
I think that's, it's a super important lesson. I think that, again, sometimes in the moment when we're experiencing something, we're feeling really bad about it.
Right.
It's very easy to internalize that.
Well, it's
But
easy
the
to become a
important
victim.
thing, yeah, it
That's the
is,
problem.
because here's the thing: no matter what experiences you have in your life, if you focus on all the things that are negative, you'll find
Right.
plenty. There are a lot of things that don't go your way, even if you're the most successful person in the world. Like,
Right.
there's going to be a list of things that you can complain about.
Right.
There's also going to be a list of things that you can be grateful for. And there's going to be
Absolutely.
a list of things that you can say, what were the lessons I learned from this? And, to your point, how do I make myself better based on the feedback I got from this? Maybe I didn't get the result I wanted,
Right.
but if this is going to make me better at what I do, because I'm going to be able to take this and I'm going to be able to use this to make myself better. And you
Right.
look at everything as a process and a journey, as opposed to each individual independent event as a
Right.
rejection, or as
Right.
somebody saying, hey, kid, you're not good enough, or we don't like you, or whatever else. And look, to not take things personally is so important, because especially in a world like acting, you literally could go into an audition and do every single thing exactly right. But if
Everything.
they're looking for a particular aesthetic or a particular look or feel and you don't have it, there's nothing you can do.
Mate, let me tell you, half the time they don't even know. Like, I've gone out for things in the past where it'll say, for example, white guy who looks like me, my eye color, my hair, my height, my build, my accent. And you go, it's me. It's me. All I've got to do is go in, get the lines right, connect with the person I'm reading with, and be professional, and it's my job. And then you watch the show, and they hired someone who is 4 feet tall, a different skin color, and has a limp and a lisp. And you go, then you start to take it really personal. You go, oh my God, it's me. It is me, but it's not you, because they don't know what they want. Look, you can always say that there's casting that takes place because of, every mega conglomerate owns some form of movie studio. They're no longer owned by Paramount or Universal. It's owned by this conglomerate, that's owned by this conglomerate, that's owned by this $800 billion company. So every decision that you're going to get hired for that job does not come from any form of logic. There is no logic. It's this is what they're looking to hire, this is what they're looking to do, and this is what rings true to them. And if you don't know that, you'll take it personally. But all of these things aside, is that if you start to tally up, and I did this, and I encourage everyone to do this who's listening. Just take 10 minutes and sit right now in a chair where you are and just say, okay, press pause. Don't let it just play in the background. Press pause and say, okay, I'm sitting here right now. What has led me to be in this position? Well, you'll say, okay, I've met my partner and it's a house we own together, or it's a place I live on my own. How did I find this place I live in? It was on this day. How did that come about? How did I find my partner? And I can take, and I've done this, and I'll take everything back to a moment in 1992 where I had a massive fallout with my entire group of friends I went to school with. Fell out. So I had to go on my own path. I ended up getting a job in this nightclub, formed a whole new group of friends who were into fitness, so I got into fitness. Same time, one of those guys who worked there was an actor, so I took an interest in that finally. And then on top of that, I started to realize that I had always been trying to stay in a friend group so I belonged to something, and I was always afraid to leave it and be on an island. I'd always wanted to be on that land with everybody. And it was, in hindsight, when it happened, it was devastating. Oh my God, I lost all my friends, all the people I've known for like 20 years and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, and you go, why me? What I do? But you start to realize now, looking back on it, it's the best thing that ever happens to you. And that's what they say. I'm a big UFC mixed martial arts fan, and you hear these great champions talk about defeat when they've lost their first fight. They'll be 16-0, 17-0, and then they lose a fight. And you'll see two things take place. One, they either fall apart, or two, they come back better. And they'll all say the same thing. You learn from your losses, not from your victories. Yeah. And the sooner people can start to say, it's not a loss, it's an education. And you have to see it that way. Everything is a moment it's a teachable moment. And you have to be conscious to say, okay, and this is the best thing you do to get past that, the victim mentality. I'm now going to trace back these moments that have led me to here. And why do these things that in that moment in time look like some form of horrible adversity? It, in the long run, has proven to me it wasn't. It proved that it gave me the ability to meet my partner, meet my whatever, get this job, have this family, have these kids, that you wouldn't now change for anything in the world. So if you can have hindsight and look back on it and realize it was positive, then you have to take that mindset, bring it to the present, and say, okay, therefore, anything that happens from this point moving forward, I have to apply the same methodology. And that means everything now is happening for a reason, to get me to where I need to be, because where I am right now is not where I'm meant to be. And therefore change takes place and you start growing again.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it. And I know it's cliche, but like they say, right? A great opportunities are usually born out of situations that we wouldn't have chosen to be in, but
Right.
nonetheless, it's dark, and then all of a sudden we turn the corner and there's the light, and we found a path closer to what we want to be doing. So I think that's really powerful. So as an actor, and then transitioning into entrepreneurship, you built a huge following, but you are the brand. So I'm curious to know, um, what advice can you give to people? Personal branding is so big right now, and I know, that the businesses that you're involved in obviously revolve around that as well. What advice would you give to somebody who wanted to build a personal brand in today's age?
You have to be able to build a trusting brand, a brand that people trust. One thing I do not do and never have done, nor will I ever do, is endorse brands that I have no belief in. I will never go to my base and be like, there's this new product. It does this, it does that. Because why are you doing it? To make a couple $1,000 up front, hopefully off the brand. It's an affiliate marketing thing where you'll make a kickback on the sales that your fans use. Because if the product is not what it's meant to be, you'll all of a sudden, your trust factor goes from here to here to here to here to here to here, and then it's gone. And trust is everything. Once someone loses their trust in you, you might as well find new people to be around, because you'll never get it back. Because you can try as hard as you can. Sorry. But it doesn't mean anything, because in the beginning, you broke that trust. So to build a personal brand, it has to come down to a couple of things. One I mentioned earlier, you have to have a purpose for doing it. And everyone, and here's the greatest part, everyone's got a purpose for doing something. You can either say, I'm a stay-at-home mom and I want to start a cooking channel. Okay, you love to cook. What do you love to cook? If you love to cook, Southern food, you're not going to start teaching people how to cook Thai food. Take what you know, because we're all an accumulation of experiences that give us, you have a knowledge and a base mindset that is better than anybody else in the world in something. In something. It won't be in how to shoot a three-point shot in basketball, and it won't be how to drive a Formula One car. But there is something that you are better at than anyone else in the world. How do you now take that thing, whatever it is, and the other things that you are great at, and then use that as your launch point to say, okay, how can I build a brand around that mentality? How can I take all these things that make me exceptional? Because we're all exceptional in our own way. How do we do that and attach a brand to it? And once again, it's got to be something that solves a pain point. It solves a problem. That's what Dysko does. It solves a problem of how people connect. Made Afraid. That's what it does. It solves a problem of how do we raise money for children and for subsistent proletariat sort of serfdom workers in these third world countries to give them a chance to get out of the rat race and the conveyor belt of just grinding it out in a sweatshop or some form of lung cancer causing mine. How do we do that? And everything has to come from the concept of how do I solve a pain point? So what are you the best at? What do you excel at? What are you gifted at? Because everyone's got something, even if it's watching TV. Start a movie critic.
Yeah.
Here's my honest thing. And I'm going to be honest about it. Everyone else is afraid to tell the truth. I'm going to do this. But it's got to be something that makes you happy. It brings you joy in some sense. That it's got to be something that solves a pain point. And once you sit down with your pen and paper and you write all these things out, you can then go into ChatGPT and say, give me some ideas for a brand that would solve this pain point. I'm this sort of person. And ChatGPT now will spit out a bunch of things. And you go, oh, that's interesting. Didn't think of that. And then from there, you can start to go on the journey of now how do I execute the brand? But it's got to come from a place of what is the brand's purpose? Otherwise, it's going to be a come and go thing. And you'll sit there and you get disenfranchised and say, I spent a year in this, 2 years in that. I spent all this money I couldn't afford to spend, and it failed. But it failed because of a lack of execution. It didn't fail for a lack of trying. Correct execution, not a lack of trying.
Yeah. Well, I think, one of the things that it's a phenomenon that I recognize a lot is when I talk to other entrepreneurs, that always fascinates me is people will have that uniqueness. They'll have something that's special or unique where they have an ability to, solve a pain point for somebody. But because for them it's natural and easy, they underestimate the value that it would give to other people.
That's a good point. That's really, really good. And it's true. And it's so true. And that's where it comes to that place where you have to be objective about yourself. You have to say, it just comes easy to me. I don't know what it is, but one thing I started doing construction when I was in college to pay for my college. And then my wife moved out of publicity into design. And when she first started, I was the construction guy for her. And I'd go to Home Depot, pick up a crew of people, bring them out, we'd build what we were building. And I had no formal training, but I know what I have instinctively, and I've always had this, is the ability to look at anything and disassemble it in my head. If it's a building, a house, a wall, I used to pull the TV apart when I was a kid, and my parents would lose their mind. But I'm glad I could put it back together because I knew I've had that. I can look at it, and I know that I can see how things function and come together. So you've got to get to that place where you realize that you have a gift that not everybody has. So that means that then that gift you have can be shared and it will be received, because you have to say, there's a pain point, and I know it's easy for me, but it's not easy for them. And that's a greater impetus than anything as to why should I start the brand? Because you're an expert at it and no one else is to your level of expertise, and I can make their lives better. I can help them. It's a very great point you bring up.
Yeah, I mean, it does fascinate me because I think people are very good about recognizing genius in other people
Yeah.
and special abilities and things like that. But sometimes when they have it themselves, I was talking to a woman who was really interested in starting a podcast,
Mm.
and she had all the equipment, got all the stuff. She has this fascinating career. She does these luxury cruises, but they're not like cruises where you just buy the ticket. They're like concierge cruises where you
Oh.
design the experience, and
Mm.
there's all these little nuances for how you set this stuff up. There are things that people don't even realize that you can do with cruises and with the and so she has all this experience. She's been doing it for 20 years, and she's been meaning to start a podcast for the last 2 years. I said, "What are you waiting for?" Well, I just don't know if anyone. I'm like, "Are you kidding me? You have a great presence. You have amazing information. Like this stuff is fascinating. I'm not even a
Yeah.
cruise guy, and
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by it." I'm like, "You got to get behind the mic and get going."
Well, the reason that is, I guarantee you, in her life, she's been told, you're not good enough. You'll never do it. Why'd you bother? Whether it be from her mother or her father or someone in her family, it was a constant barrage of, like, I know when I first started acting, I had a lot of people say to me, why are you going to do this? One in particular, I went over to England and I came across, some family that's over there that I hadn't really met. So I thought I'm going to stop in and meet them and I'll see them for the first time. And I told them what I was doing. I'm moving, pursue this, and this is what I'm going to do. And they said, so what are you going to do if it doesn't work out? I'm like, well, it's going to work out. Okay, but what are you going to do if it doesn't work out? No, but it's going to work out. Okay, you think it's going to work out, but what are you going to do if it doesn't work out? And I realized that, one, it came from a healthy place from their perspective of wanting to make sure they had a B plan. But more than that, I realized that their own experience of failure and rejection will always be passed on to whoever it is they're talking to, or someone is talking about doing something that in their mind they go, well, there's risk in that. That could fail. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. And they just start parroting what they've heard from other people. So you'll always be in this position of people telling you no and don't. But once again, it's coming from their perspective of their own insecurities, and it has got nothing to do with you. So the answer is, if it's objective information, here's some things that you should know. One, know this, know this, know that. Just always be careful where you get that information from. Make sure the source of that information is a learned person, someone who's been there, someone who's done it, and someone who's not jaded by the experience, because they'll give you bad advice too. So that's the number one thing. You cannot be afraid to fail. And I would be certain that she was afraid of failing, and that's why she has not done it.
Yeah, yeah, it was amazing. So, all right, so you've been involved in a ton of things. With so many things going on in your career, so many things going on in your life. How do you balance sort of your professional life and your personal life, and be able to get all of that stuff done?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So long story short is my wife works as hard as I do. We work 24/7. She's building her business. I'm building my businesses. Uh, our kids now are 19 and 16, so they're self-sufficient. When the kids are young, it's extremely difficult because you want to be there. You don't want to be that person that's never there for your kids. Look, it's one thing if you're a CEO and you're making all this money and you're traveling, you never see your kids. You can justify that. You go, well, I'm providing this great life for them. But on the contrary, if you're constantly trying to reinvent yourself and start this new life and you're making no money and you're not there with your kids, you know, but you can always find a way, like no matter what, I'll always be making dinner for my kids, for my family. I'll always be there. Like now I go to the gym with my 19-year-old. There's always a way to say, okay, I can't be there 24/7 for everyone who needs me in my life, in their lives, but I can find the things that mean the most to them. Whether
Mhm.
it be, so one wants to work out, one wants to learn how to do this, and you say, I'm going to give that to you. That's my commitment to you. So you don't have that that lack of connection with the family because you're so busy trying to make everything work, and then they become part of that experience. How was your day? What did you do? Well, I did this, and then they come on the journey with you. So you can integrate what you're trying to do into your loved ones' lives and into your family's lives, but you just need to find how they need it integrated into their life. And it's not how you want to integrate it into their life. So there's the balance. How do you find that balance? Well, you find the person you need to find the balance with and ask them, what is it you need from me? What is it you love doing with me? I love doing this. Okay, I will make time to do that with you. And then there's a way, because otherwise you're just constantly going, I have to spend time with them. And next thing you know, you'll sit there just doing things they don't even care about, things you don't want to do. Time passes by. You think you're justifying this personal relationship and giving them time, but it's just hours passing by that mean nothing.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, and I think it's super. I'm actually when you're talking about this, it's funny because thinking the same thing when my kids were little. I also have I have an older daughter, and then I have a son who's a senior at university, and I have a son who's a junior in high school. So
Well,
he's about to go to university. So
yeah,
same thing. They're at an age now where they don't need me all the time, but when they were younger, I always wanted to be there for everything. As I've gotten older, we pick and choose the activities where we do together because they don't want to spend every minute with you either at that point. They've got
right,
their own stuff going on.
right,
But it works because I went to the gym. I taught both of my sons how to work out. It was something that we bonded and did together. Once they got to a point where they were comfortable with it, they would often did it with their friends. I was totally fine with that. But at the same time, we had that great bonding experience. And it's something that I know they'll carry with them with their lives because it matters to them to be in shape
right,
and fit and
right,
all that other stuff and healthy. So I
right.
think that's great. Um,
Yeah,
all right. So where can people find you, your products, your services, connect with you?
sure. Go to underthein.com. It's underthein.com, short for under the influence. Underthein.com. They can see all of our services. They can see the examples of our work. And at the bottom of every page, there's a schedule a consultation. They can reach out, and then we can get back in touch with them. In regards to Dysko, the website is Dysko, that's dysko.co. Go there, have a look, check it out. We're launching our new iteration of the app. It's coming out next March, this March coming. We're probably thinking about March 16. It'll be in the App Store and the Play Store. So, um, I think that everything that we do, and this is what we touched upon earlier on, everything we do is just one of my favorite quotes is, man cannot discover new oceans until he has the courage to lose sight of the shore. And you have to take that step. You have to take that step into uncertainty. So if you're sitting there listening to this and you say, I feel inspired now, I feel motivated now, don't let that little flame die. Get a pen, get a paper, start writing down. What is it you're inspired about? What is it you've always wanted to do? How do you think that you can begin that journey? And you have to keep promises to yourself. Promises made, promises kept. Because at the end of the day, the only thing you have control over is yourself, your word, and how you react to situations. So don't shortchange yourself. Make the commitment, start the journey, but realize it's one step at a time. And ultimately, if you have a great idea for something that is based in something that has truth and honesty, and it has some form of social benefit to people, you have a great chance of succeeding. You just have to work hard and just suffer the slings and arrows of failure along the way.
It's great advice. Perfect. Thanks. All right. With that, it's just about time to wrap things up. I want to thank you again so much, Daniel, for sharing all your insights and great tips with us. Visit underthein.com to see how we can help you build your brand. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. And as always, remember, no matter what you want out of your business and your life, don't compromise, optimize.